What's up, Wizards? It's Dev from the place. And did you know Aang is good in Standard? Badgermole Cub, too, turns out, yeah. There's a lot of cards from Avatar that I think most people saw coming. Set looked pretty impactful from the get-go, and it has been. But there's even more cards, or just as many at least, that we didn't necessarily see coming. Right? There's a lot of cards that look a little wonky, a little sleepery in the Avatar set that are showing up like gangbusters in Standard. And considering I can't sleep because I have some sort of horrifying back injury I can't identify, I figured I'd go ahead and talk about some of those. Let's talk about 10 unexpected cards from Avatar showing up in Standard.
And I'm your favorite Magic Channel's favorite Magic Channel. Best believe that the professor go bananas for my deck tech.
And we're back for another Dev has an injury video. That's right. I know that you're not supposed to go too much into personal stuff at the beginning of a video because people just want to watch the list. What if you've never seen me before and you just clicked on this thing? But in just this past month, I've been diagnosed with cervical degenerative disc disease, which means my neck and shoulder will be messed up for the rest of my life. Had a tooth infection earlier on this week. Amoxicillin clearing that up right now. And then yesterday, I'm pulling the Christmas tree out of the closet, and boom, I have some sort of herniation in my lower back, and now I can't sleep, walk, or do much of anything else. This is the only position in which I can be marginally comfortable, but the show must go on. I've got videos to do and content to make, and, you know, got to do it. It's Christmas. So let's go ahead and get into some of the subject matter today and bring up our honorable mention first, the Earth King of all things. Now, I did like this card a bit during pre-release season, but I wasn't so high on it because I assumed it wasn't as good as I thought it was. I will still say it probably wasn't quite as good as I wanted it to be, but it is showing up in two piles right now. You sometimes see it in Badgermole Cub decks of both the Simic and the Golgari variety. Sometimes it's in the Beifong's Bounty Hunters like combo deck thing for some reason as a one or a two of, and then other times it's in a sort of Simic or Boroid pile as the deck's only other 4-drop. It might just be because it's one of the better ways of actually airbending in like the entire set, you know, like you get a big dude off of it, and airbending has proven to be a really good ability on Earthbender's Ascension, the aforementioned Beifong's Bounty Hunters. There's a few different cards in Standard right now that care about earthbending, especially Badgermole Cub. I mean, come on, right? But it turns out that with Cub in your deck, some more sort of esoteric, you know, earthbending things can occasionally see play, and this is top of the list so far. Raven Eagle of all things is our actual number 10 though, man. This has been showing up in Dimir. Both versions of Dimir, right? You've got the Kaito list with Enduring Curiosity, but you've also got now this like entity tracker with some enchantments like Nowhere to Run and stuff. And Raven Eagle is occasionally showing up in both versions of this deck, but it's much more likely to be in the Kaito deck. Now, you are drawing a fair amount of cards in that deck, so, you know, maybe you can hit them for a little extra drain damage, and that's nice. But it's also just like an okay flyer for the rate, and it gives you the clue token, and it messes around in a graveyard, so it's good against like the, you know, Arden deck and all that. But there are more decks that care about the graveyard than just Arden in Standard, right? The Season of Lost decks and even the Insidious Roots decks are trying to make a comeback right now. So all kinds of stuff digging around in the yard. Something like Raven Eagle is nice. It's just kind of a one-shot, take care of that thing forever, and get yourself a lot of value as the game goes on, right? Sometimes this will give you a fair number of drains over the next few turns and actually add up to a lot of damage, considering it's also swinging in the air. And then sometimes just the clue token would be good enough. So this is kind of a super advanced Windrake in terms of rate, and that was a little bit better than a lot of us decided it was going to be. You know, I've got friends here on YouTube that put this in the like, don't craft this card section. Like more than one person was like, a little disappointing during the streamer event. And I can see why it'd be disappointing during the streamer event, but it turns out we get out in here in the real world where utility matters a little bit more and not just big flashy stuff, you know, and Raven Eagle has actually been putting in some work. Now, number 9 this time around is Day of Black Sun, which I also saw a lot of people be like, this card sucks. It turns out that modal sweeper spells are typically pretty decent. We've had a few recently that haven't seen a ton of play, like 0 Point Ballad from Edge of Eternities comes to mind. And even that one would show up in sideboards from time to time. But Day of Black Sun is showing up in basically any sort of control deck that happens to run swamps in it. And I've even seen this in the sideboard of like Badgermole Cub decks for whatever reason. It is kind of strange because I think it actually plays the best against Badgermole Cub decks. And obviously mono red, you know, any deck with a lot of 1 and 2 drop creatures, this is going to be phenomenal against. But it gives black an option like, say, Split Up or Pinnacle Star Cage, you know, something that for relatively low mana can take out a lot of early aggro starts. And that is really important for black right now because it doesn't have a lot of options like this outside of the typical like infest or infect effects, 3 mana -2/-2 and do an extra thing. We've only got a couple of those effects in standard right now, which also ups the playability of Day of Black Sun. But the fact that when you have 5 or 6 mana, it can take out more stuff, yeah, that does help a good bit. And it stops like death triggers effectively. So a lot of good stuff about this little thing. And just like Meat Hook Massacre and other X sweepers before it, you see a lot of people in the preseason who are like, who wants to pay 5 mana to not even blow everything up? It turns out you want to do that a lot. It turns out, because sometimes it doesn't hit your own stuff and it just hits all your opponent's little french fries. And you're happy about that. So there's a lot of ways to use a sweeper like this, and people are doing it. Next is Aang's Iceberg. I'm pretty sure we all called this one a little bit silly. Right? Why would you ever want to do the bending thing and then they get their thing back? Well, not if you hit a token with it, which can sometimes be important, but it turns out an Oblivion Ring or Banishing Light, whatever you clock this effect as, with flash is better than an Oblivion Ring. Did you know that? Were you aware of that? I just kind of thought at first glance that this would be, about as playable as like a Hero's Downfall. 3 mana to blow up an important permanent at instant speed, and that's about it. Except that this one actually has some downside to it because you might get this blown up and they get their thing back, and that always like feels really, really crappy. But it turns out that being able to mess with basically any non-land permanent for just 3 mana and instant speed is something that blue-white decks, especially in Jeskai control decks, are really like willing to do right now because they just don't have a lot of things that cover that spread of options while not really doing anything for your opponent. Like they could play Stroke of Midnight or something, but that puts a permanent into play under your opponent's side. Whereas this right here, this can trigger Enchantress modes and stuff, This can be something you can bargain away, and a lot of decks aren't necessarily doing any of that stuff, but it is nice to have a permanent on the table with flash that you can then, I don't know, airbend later. Sure, they get the guy back, you play it again and hit something else with it. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with this that you might not think of at first glance that make up for like little ins and outs in Jeskai control matches. You don't see it in every single Jeskai deck, but you often will see it too of this card. And that's because like a versatile flash option that takes literally anything out that you might have to worry about is just typically good in like most games of Magic, and that hasn't changed. Next up is Tiger Seal, one of my favorite mix-ups of creature types in the entire set. Nothing's going to beat Cat Gator. That's like my favorite card in the last like few sets. Card's so fun. But Tiger Seal is one that I just wasn't super sure was going to find a home, but Vivi and Cauldron just got banned, and those blue-red decks have just become like discard aggro decks. I was kind of hoping they'd start playing Monument to Endurance or something like that, slow it down, get mid-rangey, but no. Turns out that with Marauding Mako and Tiger Seal now, you have 8 extremely aggressive 1-drops that attack well beyond their rates. Yeah, people have been playing the crap out of Tiger Seal. You've probably seen it out there on the arena, but it's in MTGO Challenge and League results as well. Again, these red-blue discard decks are just going absolutely nutty with this as a 1-drop, alongside their Steam Core Scholars or Tersa Light Shedders or Fear of Missing Out, their Marauding Mako. I mean, in a lot of ways, the deck builds itself. I just figured, again, that with the loss of some of its marquee cards, that deck would try to go a little bit more mid-range and find another engine like Vivi or Soul Cauldron, but no, they just decided they're going to be the fastest deck in the format, and they do that well. I guess you could say he's earned his stripes. I've still got some puns in me, even as miserable as I am right now. Number 6 is The Legend of Kuruk, and I could probably, did I say that right? Probably not. In any case, I could probably gloat a little bit about some of the cards on this list, like, oh, I saw that coming, I thought that might be good, nobody else did. Legend of Kuruk, I was convinced was an absolute slop piece of Magic card. An absolute slop piece of Magic card. I think this is affecting my speech. In any case, yeah, I was sure this card was just like abjectly terrible, and now it's in stuff. How did that happen? I think it mostly happened because blue-black enchantments is a thing now. Again, you've got Grim Bobble's an artifact, but who cares? You've got Grim Bobble and you're Nowhere to Run in that deck, along with, Entity Tracker and a card we'll talk about in a minute that also lets you bring stuff back to your hand. Fear of Isolation is also an enchantment. So it's like a weird hybrid Pixie Enchantress deck or whatever, and this is the top end of that deck, and it's actually pretty slick after an Entity Tracker because it just draws like all of the cards over a couple of turns, and then it becomes an actually like tough dude to deal with. Like the line of text, whenever you basically do anything, you make a guy, is extremely hard to do anything about. And it's not like this is one of those legends from Spider-Man that takes 1,000,000 mana to flip over, or one of those Aangs where you have to like fulfill some sort of specific condition to flip it over. It's a saga. Just wait a couple turns and it flips itself over. And now you got a dude that makes a bajillion tokens and is not like too small himself either. So this is like an honest to God win condition that puts cards in your hands before it's a win condition. And it turns out that was like way better than I thought it was going to be. So kudos to Kuruk. But next is another big blue card actually. And man, we got to build big blue for the stream. It feels like a while since we built our like mono blue mid-range deck that we like to build for the stream. And it's always bad, but like maybe it's good in this format, especially with all these good cards. And by the way, sorry for crashing out on stream last night. It's pretty legendary. I don't even know if it's going to make YouTube, but you know, I haven't slept well in weeks because of my neck, shoulder, now my back. I've got the back problems. I've got the neck problems, shoulder problems. My tooth is still swollen, all that. And I sat down to stream last night and did not have a good time. I tried to make it a very entertaining crash out, and I hope it was. But if there's anybody out there that was like, man, Dev is really salty and I do not like that, then I apologize retroactively. In any case, the next card on the list is the Unagi of Kyoshi Isle. Am I pronouncing any of these cards right? I'm pretty sure it's not pronounced Kuruk. Whatever I was doing back there, it's probably just Kuruk, right? So let's also pronounce this the most like easy way possible. Kyoshi Isle. That's got to be right. But anyway, this is been all right. I figured this would mostly just be a commander card, right? Because drawing extra 2 cards, like a double fairy mastermind whenever opponents draw extra cards, that seems good even at 5 mana. Especially with the flash, but turns out that's good in standard too. You know, this is like a weird response to a Quantum Riddler coming down on the opponent's side of the table. It happens a good bit, but this has been showing up not only in sideboards as a one-of, but also in main decks of the kind of more Kaito-y Dimir lists. Again, this one's not in all of them, but it is a 1 or even a 2 of in some main decks. And I feel like as the format goes on, first of all, Kaito Dimir gets more and more bad, which I think is awesome. But the more you see Kaito Dimir, the more you see a couple of copies of this card. It's a win condition that also punishes your opponent just for like playing Magic successfully. And I'll go, if you guys probably remember Sheldred the Apocalypse, right? It's like any Magic card you could describe that way. Like, oh, I play Magic and it just wins. I don't have to do anything special. I just play Magic. Like those cards tend to be really, really good. And Legend of Kyoshi Isle. Legend of Kyoshi Isle? Unagi of Kyoshi Isle. It's an eel. That's what unagi means, right? You go to the Japanese restaurant, you're like, I would like some unagi, and they give you eel. That's what that is. So it's the eel of Kyoshi Isle. Turns out to be like a relatively big guy. You can play as a control finisher or something. It comes down with flash. Sometimes you see it alongside Wan Shi Tong because they just put every good flash control finisher in the set. And it's pretty amazing to see this card alongside the second best card from the set in terms of competitive play. Badgermole Cub is the number 1. And then Wan Shi Tong is a number 2. So if you have the opportunity to play Wan Shi Tong as a 4-of in your deck, and you don't, and you instead play some number of Unagi and alongside it, I think that actually speaks for how good this card is. Hope my stomach's not showing in any of these. Number 4 is Avatar's Wrath, man. I thought this might be like too weird. You know, especially for standard. This is another one where like, okay, you play this in Commander, and then profit. It just seems like one of those, like, especially if 3 different people just basically can't like reestablish their board state, and you're just over here like whistling, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I do whatever I want. I'm having a good time. You guys playing Magic over there? Look, the card literally keeps your opponents from playing Magic for a turn, kind of. And that should have tipped us all off to the fact that it's outrageous. You actually don't see this as much in standard as you did for the first like week of the format, but now it's been a week and a half. So over the last 4 days, I haven't seen this show up in results as much, but it's still here in a deck or two from time to time. Surprisingly aggro decks from time to time, but you know, it'll be an Appa and combo and stuff like that as like a one of either, both as a panic button and a way to sort of like establish combo from time to time and just get a bunch of guys, you know, kind of combo off with Doc Arlock without having to do a bunch of like infinite stuff with a copy of Aang Swift Savior. It's just a cool line to have in the Appa decks. So just good to see yet another card that I was pretty sure was never going to ever see actual play. I mean, I think during pre-release season, I said like, wouldn't you rather just play Day of Judgment? And it's like, you know, Day of Judgment, that just buys you like 1 or 2 turns. You know what I'm saying? Like, doesn't seem so great, but it does a lot more than just buy you a turn or 2. It forces decisions on your opponent. Like, oh, do I want to curve out and cast the 4 or 5 drop in my hand? Or do I want to reestablish and get my couple of like 2 drops back? And, you know, it hits tokens and they can never get those back. And sometimes it hits enough creatures that they just won't have enough mana for the rest of the game to, again, like play the cards in their hand and also the creatures from exile. So in some ways, sure, it just lets them reestablish board state by replaying those dudes, you know, but it gives them a turn off of doing that. And now they have to play stuff out of their hand. Turn after that, they had to play stuff out of exile. Have you noticed that they're tapping their mana down during their turn? Every turn, you can just like counter spells and stuff like that. This also is great in control decks, by the way, because it gives us a turn to untap our mana. You know what I mean? And that's kind of nice for a sorcery speed sweeper. So just so many good things about Avatar's Wrath, and it is showing up and showing out. My number 3 is Zuko's Conviction, which is really like just slamming up the pipeline lately, man. I didn't see this card for like 5 days when Standard first started, and I kept asking myself, like, man, I wonder if the Arden decks can play Zuko's Conviction. Like, I wonder if that's good at all. And then they started doing it. Like, they still play for Kaivero, Mind Bitten, Superior Spider-Man? That's what he's called. They still play 4 of that card in the main deck, but now they're playing 2 copies rather of Zuko's Conviction in most lists, and that gives them a way to do the Bringer combo at instant speed, which is brutal. That's like, absolutely, how do you deal with that, you know, in most situations? The only worst thing than a Bringer the Last Gift on their turn is a Bringer the Last Gift on your turn. So it's just pretty awful, dog. But at the same time, you know, this gives the deck a little bit of utility too. Like if they lose an Arden or if they lose a Superior Spider-Man or something, they don't have to necessarily reanimate it. Like they can just get it back with the Raise Dead mode and then replay Superior Spider-Man, you know, on their turn or something. And it kind of costs as much as just casting the Zuko's Conviction would have cost. But, you know, there might be like mana concerns that'll allow you to do that. It might be a better decision for all kinds of, you know, logistical reasons. So it's pretty cool, man. It turns out that an instant speed Raise Dead is kind of already okay, but when you staple it to a spell that allows you to just throw the guy onto the table in instant speed, like it becomes so crazy. So there's already a decent Reanimator deck in Standard that did not necessarily need more good options, but I guess it got them. Number 2 is The Legend of Roku. This card is seeing play all the way back to Modern, everybody. I'm pretty sure it's in the Boros Energy deck in the sideboard for grindier matchups and stuff like that, which is just like so wild, but it's effectively like a red Harmonize, you know, when you really think about it. Kind of a red Harmonize, and then eventually, you know, I was saying this with Legend of Kuruk or whatever it's called, that like you don't have to do anything fancy to flip it over. Like, you just wait and it just flips over by itself. And it becomes this like relatively big dude that can easily put like other guys on the table. Like it looks like hard to use his ability, but you know, he firebends like almost enough in the first place to use the ability. You know, if you just got 4 extra mana laying around, now you can get a dragon like every turn. And the dragon fire breathes too, so it won't be long before you're attacking with both of them and you just funnel all of their fire breathing into his own activated ability. At which point you're just winning. Like I don't think you'll have to do that more than a couple times, just win the game outright. So card kind of runs away with the game while also providing a lot of card advantage on the front half. And that again should have been pretty obviously good to most people. But I looked at this during pre-release and was like, this is not. Come on, right? Nah. But I don't know. There was still something in the back of my mind that was like, there might be something here. It ramps, it draws, it is Guy. And like anything that ramps, draws, and is Guy is probably worth 4 mana. You know, I was sitting here acting like this was 6 mana. Like, oh, it was way too expensive. 4 mana is not that bad for what this actually does. It doesn't put extra cards in your hand, but it does kind of replace itself multiple times while also giving you like a threat your opponent has to actually do something about it. They'll lose the game. So I don't know why I couldn't clock this one, but apparently a bunch of other people did. It's not just in Boros Energy, it's also in random Standard decks. You know, I've seen this in Mono Red and sideboards. I've seen this in the Boros aggro deck with like Firebender Ascension and stuff a couple times. So it's just like kind of popping up here and there and everywhere. And that deserves some recognition because I figured this would be bulk forever. But my numero uno is Boomerang Basics. So this is one of the few cards, besides Badgermole Cub really, and Aang at the Crossroads. I guess, Appa, I shouldn't have said that. This is one of many cards in the Avatar set to have an entire deck, like brand new, very powerful, tier at least B+ deck, like pop up around it. And it's probably the reason that Pixie isn't in the Pixie decks anymore. Like, we cut the white from the Pixie decks, and now we're playing Fear of Isolation and Boomerang Basics as the thing that lets us whip stuff back to our hand. Because basically it's 1 mana to draw a card. It's really 1 mana to draw a card and put the Nowhere to Run back in your hand is often like game winning, or for whatever reason. That's just so much good value in the early to mid game. And beyond that, in a pinch, this can deal with opponents' threats, and that can matter if they're putting a bunch of +1/+1 counters on something or whatever, So being able to, for 1 mana, also neutralize opponent stuff, excellent stuff, man. I had somebody in my comments section the other day call this just a boomerang for 1 mana, and it's not. Boomerang allows you to hit lands at instant speed. Boomerang is a ridiculous Magic card. There's a reason they never print Boomerang in Standard anymore. It's basically 2 mana land destruction and instant speed, and that's insane. You can't print that card. It's way too good. But this, on the other hand, is sorcery speed, and that does help to, pull the card down a little bit in terms of playability, but obviously not enough for it not to be a marquee player in Standard. So this lowly little uncommon lesson that a lot of us figured would kind of just be a mainstay in Lessons decks, and is it, like, oh, it'll help you get your accumulated wisdom going. Like, no, it does so much more than that. Card does so much more than that. It removes, creatures for tempo, and you can swing in. It takes, enchantments and puts them back in your hand. It draws extra cards off of Entity Tracker. This is crazy with Tracker, right? Like, you have a Tracker and playing a Nowhere to Run, play Boomerang Basics, get your Nowhere to Run back in your hand, draw a card off the Basics, replay the Nowhere to Run, remove their guy, and draw a card off the Tracker. It's like, you're winning that game, dude. Like, Boomerang Basics has just done so much because it's such an incredibly efficient card for what it's actually doing. Same principle as Pixie, right? 1 mana to do this is really, really good. Pixie gives you a 2/2 flyer. This draws a card and is in a kind of color more conducive to actually playing competitive Magic right now. So all of that leads to a card that's seeing tons of 4-up play in Standard, not just in the one deck, but even beyond in some cases. So a little bit surprised to see this all the way at number 1, but this has certainly made a giant impact on the format. Man, not picking this as one of my best cards is really coming back on me. Boomerang jokes? Anybody? Anyway, that is it for this one. I'm sorry if this one was kind of short, but trying to get through it. But there's even more cards than this that this probably could have been like a top 20, dude. Avatar has been such an insanely successful set in terms of like competitive viability and in terms of like goodwill, like we all, not all of us, but a lot of us made the point when Spider-Man came out, like, dude, just give us until Lorwyn and things will get better. People will forget when we get to Lorwyn. Turns out it didn't take that long. People were really excited about the Avatar set in the first place because the franchise has a bunch of like really rabid fans, very dedicated people. But apart from that, Wizards has decided to sit down and make a Lord of the Rings or Final Fantasy, level set in terms of the care, love, and attention that they put into it. And you can really see that in every corner of Avatar. But they've also decided to sit down and make a set that does not screw around. Like Final Fantasy screws around a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, it's still got Tifa and like Traveling Chocobo, and there's really good cards in that set for competitive play. Don't get me wrong, but it does slightly screw around. It pauses to dance from time to time. There's a little bit of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth or whatever it's called in Final Fantasy the Magic set. Whereas this one is just dead serious. I'm going to kick you in the teeth. So just Avatar has been in some ways the set of the year. I think that Edge of Eternities is probably my actual set of the year, especially given that it's in universe. And then there's Final Fantasy, like, nothing's going to top Final Fantasy for me. But man, Avatar, in terms of like design for a set and how good competitively the cards are, this might be the number 1 set of the year, dude. So a lot of power here, even more than we ever expected. And if you've got cards that you wish I'd have brought up and that you're having a lot of, success with in the arena or in paper or whatever, hit me up in the comments section, man. I'm always interested to know what you guys think. Give me your well wishes down there. I feel your hands on my back. If I get enough of the thoughts and prayers and stuff, then maybe I'll feel better. Who knows? I think that there might be like a collective unconscious. We're all a big connected web where you can't see it. There might be something to that theory, or maybe I'm just delusional because I haven't slept in weeks. But anyway, guys, let me know how you feel about all this stuff down there in the comment section. How you like Avatar as a set? Are you still excited for Lorwyn? God knows I am. It's not even that far away. I cannot wait to go to Lorwyn. But anyway, good stuff from the Avatar set, I guess is my point. And that's about it. If you want to reward the hard work and the dedication to do stuff whenever, even though I'm destroyed. Also, feet pics. You got feet pics in this video, didn't you? Yeah. So if you want to reward that, it's just $1 a month to check out the Patreon and support the content around here and vote on what we do. As a matter of fact, the patrons voted for not only the last video and this video, but the next one too. We're going to do the Mono Black My deck tech with Tiny Bones joins up and a bunch of legends, and it's really cool. So sub for that one. Hit up the Patreon for the support. It's only $1 a month. Nothing else in the world costs $1 a month, and no one else offers you power. Everyone else just offers you like a soft taco or something for like $1.69, and it's a ripoff. Is it even $1.60? It's more than that at Taco Bell now, isn't it? Taco Bell is just out of their minds, bro. But but I offer you power and not just a cheeseburger for your $1. So get over there, pitch over, and then also like the video. I think that's it. Pretty sure I did it. Now I have to get up and turn the camera off, which will be the most excruciating thing I've ever done in my life. So wish me luck, everybody. I love you very much, and I'll see you again soon. I am Deb from The Place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.